Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 196th iteration of the show, recorded on the 5th of June, 2016. My name is Josh Trelevin, and with me, as always,
co-host extraordinaire, Ryan Kirkby.
Ryan, how's it going?
Not too bad. It's too hot here, though.
Too hot. It's
June. It's June, and we're already hitting the 30-degree weather here.
Well, I
but this
don't
is
have
not,
any complaints.
It's not record-breaking heat, but it is just like, summer, dang it. I always like it when the breeze blows and it cools me down, not the breeze blows and I go, oh, it's so dry, I can feel myself withering. I am a Canadian man at heart. Anything over 15 degrees feels too warm.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. I was thinking, if there's some people from other countries here, they might still think, it's a little bit on the cool side.
My wife is only, it's going, oh, it's just not bad. It's only a little warm. She's not, really perspiring much. But for me, it's this, I'm always of the philosophy, I prefer it to be colder, because if I get cold, I can work to, get, my temperature up. But when it's too hot, you can't do reverse work to cool your body down. At a certain, point in time, it just goes over your base body temperature, and you just leave yourself, stewing in your own juices. Welcome to summer.
Yeah, well, sweating technically does reduce your body temperature. That's what it
should, but
it does at least up to what? I don't know.
It does have certain dependencies
40s,
on
30s?
Local humidities and all that. And given that we are next to the ocean, we have a much higher natural humidity than I grew up and am used to.
Okay.
When I was unemployed, laid off a number of years back, I tried working at the Galley Farms. And it was just so humid, I couldn't sweat properly to get the exercise out, and regulate my body temperature right.
Yeah.
I was able to back home when I was helping my dad out when he had a pop disc. I was doing his lawn maintenance for him. I was doing 12-hour days, and I was doing fine. 12 hours of cutting grass, hard work.
Yeah. Just drink lots of water.
Drink lots of water, and just watch yourself. And I was doing so much better there because it's drier there. When you sweat, the moisture evaporates and wicks away at a lot quicker pace, and my body's used to being able to suck the heat out of my body, that quicker. Whereas here, it's a much slower process, and I do have deep sympathy for any cut of meat in a stew these days. Because that's what it feels like for me when I work too hard outside.
Great sympathy for it, and then I eat it. Oh, poor meat.
Well, I'm not going to eat soup. That's just basically food and water. Eat stew. It's good. It's thick. It's hearty. Put some meat in the bones.
Yeah, but I just like the thought that as you're eating it, you're like, oh, poor stew. Poor little piece of meat and stew.
Well, it's already made. What am I going to do, not eat it, just stare at it for a while?
If you truly felt bad for it, wouldn't you?
Well, I'd feel even worse for not eating it, because then I'd feel everything went in so hard to making the stew, and then I didn't do anything and let it go to waste. That's disrespectful.
Okay, fair enough.
At least from my opinion. But yes, Ryan Kirkby the stew this week.
Okay, stewing.
So yeah, we got there's a bit of a news thing this week. It's not fiction related completely, but it is tangent into fiction. It's the passing of the greatest ever, as he was known, Muhammad Ali.
Oh yeah, I guess our listeners probably already have seen this because it's a big news story. But yes,
well, that's the thing. It's he's the greatest ever, and and that was his title,
the greatest ever. Yeah.
But the bit I want to talk about is his boasts and his wit in his words. I just haven't heard anyone else have such a witty smack game as he did.
Smack game, as
he,
verbal game aside. He's definitely the greatest in terms of.
Well, that's the thing. It's he
fighting.
Called himself the greatest even before it was ever proven. He called himself the greatest.
So he's also a greatest wordsmith and master.
Well, especially given the fact that he was getting punched in the head as part of his basic career. I found him to be amazingly witty, for the stuff he said. He'd be saying stuff like, "I'm so quick, I turn off the lights and get into bed before it gets dark." So that's how quick he is. He's faster than the speed of light, man.
So that's not possible.
No, it's not possible. His hyperbole, though, just got a point like how fast he was. He would say, like, I can punch, in like 1/10 of a second. The average person can only punch, 1/5 of a second. I'm twice as fast as them. He's a quick guy.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't say that. He'd say, like, I'm so quick, I turned off the light and got into bed before it was dark.
Well, what's funny about that? Like, I want to know. Like, is it funny? Is it funny in the context
because it's so
of a
clearly
boxer?
not possible. It's just
yeah.
It's a complete fabrication, and no one would ever take it seriously. Like Will Smith in his song "I Think I Could Beat Mike Tyson." He gives some stuff where he's trying to talk some smack, and he goes completely overboard and not in the right way. Because he's completely unproven going up against Iron Mike. His boasts are going to have to fight the uphill. He went straight to Muhammad Ali, impossible. He was saying, he can throw a Volkswagen a half block. He's done 1,000 sit-ups, sort of thing. And just, do you think you could do 1,000 sit-ups just right off the start for your practice?
I could
do 1,000 sit-ups eventually.
Yeah.
But not as part of a routine sort of thing, just doing one against the other. And there's no way I can throw a Volkswagen a whole half block.
Okay.
So in order for it to be funny, you have to be good and then say you're even better than that. Because like Muhammad Ali was like something like, what was it, 27-0? He was completely undefeated before he had to take 3 years out of the ring. He refused to go into Vietnam, and he got suspended from the boxing council for 3 years. That's why he had to take a 3-year pause in his career. But yeah, 27-0. This is like an amazing record. So he's good. He can say he's good. He can say he's good because it's backed up. There's numbers to prove it. But then he goes and it's like putting icing on a cake. It makes it even better by going even more.
Does it?
Yeah, because his career, sort of thing, 27-0 in professional boxing matches. That's amazing. That's almost statistically impossible. So he's good. He's got the skill, and then he says he's so much better. The skill he doesn't even play to the skill. He's just so much better than that.
Yeah. Okay.
How good is he? That if you even dream of beating him, you better wake up and apologize.
Is that another line?
Yeah, there's another one of his things. But he gave some of the stuff was almost like poetry. It wasn't just enough to say that his footwork was fancy and put people off their guard. Because that's what it was. His footwork it wasn't just his punches, and he was quick. It was his footwork that helped keep him, on top in dominance. But instead, he delivered the famous line: "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. The fist can't hit what the eyes can't see."
Because he was good at dodging. He
was good at dodging. His footwork, made sure that when you're throwing your punch, he was already gone.
Yeah. So, so
by the time your glove is out there, he's already gone around and bam, he's socked you one, himself. So he knew how to play it tactically.
I mean, this is in boxing. This is what everyone is trying to do. Everyone is trying to be fast and dodge and be very good at this specific thing.
And he was very good at that.
Yeah, so he just had the package. And
then he claimed himself to be even so much more.
I would say that every boxer, on a professional level, every boxer has, some speed that's sort of more than a normal person, and the ability to do what you're saying.
I couldn't last against even most of the amateurs here in Victoria in a ring. I'll say that. Man.
So when he has these lines, it's like he's saying that he, even compared to your boxers and your very amazing fighters, like he's even better than that.
Well, just ask Sonny Liston and Joe Frazier,
which are other boxers
who he knocked down flat on the ring.
But yeah, it illustrates a little bit too, or it points to this fabulous exaggeration of the world of boxing in general, because the world of in reality it is sort of all manufactured and made up, because there's no sort of real world scenario where you get boxing gloves put on and you're tested in that way.
Well, the only reason why there was boxing gloves is people kept killing each other in the ring with the bare knuckle stuff. It's pretty brutal because it's two people punching each other for long periods of time.
Yeah, I remember
oversight back in the day.
I remember hearing. Well, it might have been the case that might have happened, but also I remember hearing that it's probably safer on the whole, to actually box without gloves because you don't actually hit as hard.
Because like with the gloves on, you can hit as hard as you want without like busting up your own knuckles.
Yeah, you break your hand because you're hitting a person's skull, which is
that's just physics, man. I mean, come on, yeah.
But I don't know if that's a long-term thing and I don't know exactly the history of why they actually started wearing gloves. It might have been that they were just smashing up their hands and thought, well,
and faces.
And sort of they started with sort of taping up their hands, like, oh, what if I put on this little glove? Oh, well, my hand doesn't get as bloody, so just increase the size. I don't think that was to protect faces, although it might have been at some point, like,
it was to keep each other
gloves?
from killing people. I mean, you can go back and you can read stuff of like H.P. Lovecraft even winds up mentioning like the bare knuckle boxing back in the day. Herbert West Reanimator is the one I'm thinking of, where it's in there. And it winds up being like, hey, you need a fresh body. There was a match here, with two bare knuckle boxers. One of them's dead. It's pretty darn fresh. The cops don't even know about this fresh body. You want it, Herbert? Well, apparently yes.
The other thing about boxing that I've taken one lesson, but I used to horse around with my brother. And what we used to do, we didn't hit in the face, although we probably could have. Now looking back on it, I think we didn't hit it because we were scared to,
mess up each other's pretty faces.
Yeah, hurt our own faces. Like if I hit him in the face, he was going to come after my face. So we kind of had a truce in a way. But we did body shots a lot, and it was never about pounding the other guy. It was about scoring points. All we wanted to do was the touch. Like we'd.
But would it seem as masculine if like they're just instead of like with a big old fists, it's just like they put like chalk powder on like their middle and index finger and just spend their time trying to poke each other around instead?
We probably could have. Looking back on it, we could have, if we had thought of that, we could have done that, and just it would have been the same effective, the same fight.
You put the chalk stuff on your fingers to make sure it's like, aha, look, you did touch. See.
But then taking the boxing lesson, at least at first, it's never been about hitting your opponent like as hard. Really, it's not. You're not supposed to try and ring.
You're not going to try. You're never going to knock out a person in one blow.
Well, yeah, and so the point of the game of boxing, the what I find thrilling about it, exciting, is just getting the touches in. And that's what they score points for, anyways. Is just if you can make contact.
Well, that's why Manny Pacquiao technically lost in the fight he had against Mayweather last year.
Oh yeah.
Was he didn't do enough touches, but I gotta say, if he had connected that one more time in that fourth round, from what I was watching, there would not have been a fifth round. So there is something to be said about getting that one final blow in. If he had hit with that one in the fourth, like Mayweather would just have gone absolutely down. It would not have been fifth round sort of thing. That blow would have just creamed him.
But then, yeah, you're right about Muhammad Ali. What he sort of brought to it, or took to another level, was this whole mythologizing and theatricizing, which we talk. That's why we bring it up in the Simulationist, is because it's this thing that grows beyond just a little hit each other in the face game to a massive. This means something. Like this is like the champion of the world, as if.
Well, it's like it's just the tall tale sort of thing, with like Paul Bunyan. Oh, he was so big, and all that. That his feet left behind lakes, and that's why there's so many lakes in this area. That's where he was.
Yeah, and then Muhammad Ali just adds on to this like sort of poetry into it, and in a way it brings, in a way it sort of, at the same time as exaggerating, saying it's the greatest, he's also bringing it down a little bit because, this is ridiculous. Like, this is, we're hitting each other in the face. But it's so ridiculous. He's talking about, being so fast that he can beat the speed of light and stuff. So you realize that it's sort of this comic book world where, just physics doesn't matter.
It made him good enough that he could fight Superman in the ring in that one issue.
There was a comic book.
There was a comic book where he fought. I don't know who won. I on the one hand, it's like, I'd like to know how it ends. On the other hand, it's like, ooh, what if I ever get the chance to read it? Don't want a spoiler on that one.
My guess, totally no spoilers here because I don't actually know the outcome, but what I would hypothesize, or how I would write the story, Muhammad Ali would beat Superman in the ring.
I believe if there's no superpowers, if there's no superpowers for Superman, Muhammad Ali, I think, would cream Superman, just absolutely mess him up, because Superman's used to having his powers and whatnot. And against somebody who's trained in the boxing style, he just doesn't have the technical finesse.
I would give Superman his powers, but because I'm imagining Muhammad Ali as a comic book character, I'm basically picturing him as having superpowers.
Like the speed of the Flash.
Very specifically for the ring, yeah. Because the other thing, it's the principle, I think you might know this, but if Superman and the Flash race, the Flash has to win because that's his thing. Because he is the ultimate speedster.
On the other hand, it has to appear like a real race, otherwise it's a very boring comic.
Yeah.
Whereas there have been other times when, the two of them are running, and, the Flash is, like, running, and Superman's flying, and, we gotta get there right now. Can you keep up, Flash? And he's like, please, of course I can. You keep up with me. He's like, I don't know, we've raced before. And it just came in neck and neck, and the Flash goes, please, Clark, that was for charity. And just, boom! He's ahead. So, there's something to be said about making sure it's an interesting read as well.
Yeah. So I feel that the boxing ring is Muhammad Ali's super arena, in which he is the king, and Superman can beat him at other kind of contests, but specifically for the ring, I'd say Ali would beat Superman.
Yes.
But that's just.
I haven't read the comic myself, and I really don't want it spoiled. On the other hand, I really kind of want to know, because I got to find myself a copy. But they're not making reprints of that, so I'm not going to be able to afford that.
Plus, I think it just fits with his boasting nature to say that he can. Oh, I beat Superman, or doesn't he say Superman at some point? He makes a quote about I'm better than Superman.
Might have, I haven't read all of his quotes.
Yeah.
That's the thing though, is his poetry wasn't confined just to his abilities. Apparently, he and Howard Cosell had a little bit of like a back and back sort of thing they talked with each other on, and he'd do stuff like they made penicillin out of bread mold. They can make something out of you. And it was good. It was good stuff that he had there. It was a good fun smack talk. Don't get me wrong. There have been other people with even more, effective smack talk, like Iron Mike Tyson, as we mentioned earlier. His smack talk wasn't as witty, but it was much more brutal. Let me see here. It's absolutely ludicrous that these mortals would dare step into my domain. I'm going to kill them. How dare they try and step into my domain? Or, I'm trying to be professional about this, but basically I'm going to try and make orphans out of its children. My impression. Thank you. Oh. Hold down your applause.
Was that Mike Tyson?
That was Mike Tyson.
Right.
And that's the thing, is like I'm going to try and make orphans of his children. That is good smack talk, but it's also very, very vicious smack talk. You brought the family into it, man. And that's the thing, it just wasn't as witty as Muhammad Ali. Saying, not only am I going to enjoy this fight tonight, I'm going to tell you which round I'm going to knock him out, and it'll be the 11th. Sort of thing. And bam, he knocks him out in the 11th, and everyone's like, ah! It's like Babe Ruth calling where he's going to knock his homer off to.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
I heard a joke on another podcast, so I'll tell it. Well, not a joke. Not a joke. It's a bit. And I probably shouldn't even... Well, okay.
Give proper attribution.
Stealing this from the Harmontown podcast because Dan Harmon came up.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, this is my one. If I was a stand-up comic, he says this was what I would do as part of his act. So yeah, Dan Harmon's wrestling bit. He's like, yeah. So everybody says that wrestling, professional wrestling is fake, but I think, as Dan Harmon or the person saying the joke. I think that all other previous wrestling was fake, because in 6,000 years, do you think it's plausible that no one ever thought to bring a snake or a 2x4 in to the ring to win? There's this. That was
that's how
by Dan
professional.
Yeah. So yeah, wrestling if I can explain the joke.
Yeah.
Which. Is a dumb idea, but this is the Simulationist, not the Jokey Joke podcast. But yeah, it's the wrestling as a whole, and boxing for that matter. It's so fake to begin with because it's just this artificial environment where they draw a ring around people and say only you two are allowed to fight each other, and there's so many rules.
But that's the thing, though, with boxing, there's no people know who's going to win at the end. With some of the I won't say all professional wrestling, but some professional wrestling. The winner is basically known beforehand.
Okay, yeah, that much is true.
And that's the thing is I don't see it as particularly being that bad because it's like, okay, this is how it's going to have to end. Here's how you start, and we're going to need a few pieces like this in between. We're going to need something where like off the ring. We're going to need like a chair smack on the back, and we're going to need like a secret. Like this guy comes on in in the third act twist. And then you guys got to fill it in and make it look natural in between. That's not too far off of Stan Lee and the Lee and Ditko style for writing a comic book. Where it's like, okay, we need this to happen here, this is how it goes here, we need this scene here, and this is how it ends. And then, Ditko would do his drawing, and then Stan Lee would put in the word balloons to make everything fit. And so it wasn't as though it was like choreographed, like panel by panel, like you see with some people's writing. It was more like a kind of a back and forth with a lot of free form interpretation in between. And I see like the fake professional wrestling as being analogous to that. And so, in a sense, there isn't. I don't see it as being as bad because like, oh, it's all rigged. I see it as being like a storytelling sort of situation. In which case, it's like there's a lot of free roaming, area in between to how things go exactly. And let's be honest, it's never about how it ends. It's about how you get to the end.
You have to keep in mind how it ends, because also people will bet on it and stuff.
Well, that's the thing. Most stories, you don't have to worry about like, is Spider-Man going to die in this issue? So no, Spider-Man's going to live, and I'm pretty certain.
I see.
So you don't have to really worry about that. That's never going to be like, oh God, what if I, I pick up the Spider-Man story and he's dead halfway through? Then what happens? It's like, no, it's just he's not going to die, not really.
Mm-hmm.
But how does he save the day? That's what really matters. And it's like, how does the fight go down? That's what really matters. Provided you accept it as a work of fiction, then the professional wrestling isn't that bad as a fake. So it's all good that way. But yes, sadly Muhammad Ali has passed away, and the world is a little more blue because 2016 has claimed another famous person.
Yeah, another famous person died. This is the year of. I'm
the year
sure
you say goodbye to your celebrities. By the way, if you see Ozzy Osbourne, please make sure he's doing well. I didn't see him when he came in to concert last time, and I'd kind of like to see him maybe next time, please. So, if you see Ozzy on the side of the road, he's not Buddha, don't kill him. Try and make sure he stays alive.
Okay. Yeah.
But yes, I believe, though, everybody could benefit from a little bit of this boastful talk. I believe it's like, one part poetry, one part, fun, tall tale. It is good to have that, sort of thing. Is try it out for yourself. Try and boast yourself as bigger than you are, and try doing it without making yourself sound like too conceited. Because that's the big thing about Muhammad Ali is that he never sounded conceited about it. He sounded like he was just having fun. Like he's saying how casually he breaks the speed of light. And it's there's some people they try it, and they're going to sound very narcissistic about it. So you got to find that right mix that works with your charisma and your style. And when you can find that, you can make the world laugh and go along with you.
And what about characters? Like, I don't know, character in a novel. Because in this way, it's a very self-aware sort of bragging. It's like, and sort of savvy. So there you can have I guess a spectrum of characters if you were writing a novel or playing a character in a role-playing game, who was some degree of self-aware. Like at one end, it's Don Quixote not being aware and just sort of having this inflated sense of himself.
And then you go on the other end, the adventures of Baron Munchausen, where the entire story is almost an entire farce of possibility. Like, there's hero, there's superhero, and then there's this Baron Munchausen guy, man. It's like, oh my god, the stuff he's doing is not even just impossible, but it only works as a literary construct because otherwise it doesn't work in visual mediums. Which might be why it never worked itself over to like a superhero sort of character or even like a small TV series. Which is a bit
somebody might still at some point pick it up.
Hey, here's hoping.
Yeah.
It's the thing from what I've read of it, and I haven't got a chance to read the whole thing. It's a very good, if a somewhat ludicrous, example of the over-the-top boasts.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, up until I believe it was a month ago when they retired the character, that was like the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. His boasts were in a similar vein. It's just not like they should be taken seriously, but they were pretty darn awesome.
Yeah, or Chuck Norris facts for that matter, stuff like that.
Done right. Some Chuck Norris ones are just kind of but as with anything cobbled together by multiple people, sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's not quite a hit, you know.
Okay, I would, yeah, but if you sort of skim off the best ones.
Oh yeah, definitely the best ones. I mean, there's some ones that just go on too long, you know, like if he points at a cow, you know, with his left finger, this happens, points with the right one, this happens, you know, and it goes on with a whole bunch of lists. No, it's like, no, you want to keep them short and sweet. You don't want to make it like an entire paragraph out of this.
Do people remember the bombs though? Like in terms of
when they
jokes?
go bad enough, yeah, it was like forever and ever. I remember it's like this one could have been better if it had been shortened down. But no, it just went on too long, and that's the thing about like the boasts is they have to be short and sweet. You can't make like an entire paragraph about how awesome you are. You have to do it in like 1 or 2 lines at most, preferably 1 line.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you probably could, but you'd have to make it like a real. You'd make it compelling, and you'd have to have little punches in the middle of your paragraph or whatever, just to keep it. This is sort of comedy writing thoughts here. But yeah,
you like because it's a boast, you can't like make it a monologue.
Probably not. Yeah.
It has to be just for you know like a quick little like I'm so good I can do this.
Yeah, it's better. It's easier to do sound bites and do something quick. Yeah.
And then again, you want to make certain like it works because sometimes like some boasts I've heard or you know, some like. Some comedy lines just don't really make sense when you start thinking about them. Like, my wife talks so much, she speaks 140 words a minute with gusts up to 180. It's just like, that was like 9/10 of a joke, but it's just, no, it doesn't fall apart when you just start thinking about it. Not bad, though.
I mean, if you take gusts as a metaphor for bursts of talking faster...
My wife speaks so much, so quickly, she can say the entire Gettysburg Address in less than 2 minutes. She was once able to finish, War and Peace over the phone in a half hour.
Okay.
Those are good boasts and all that, but she speaks 140 minutes, 440 words a minute with gusts up to 180. It's like, okay, but that doesn't really make much sense.
Doesn't it? Why not? Why doesn't that make sense?
How would that work with gusts up to 180? It sounds like he's taking a line from like the weather forecast, which works.
Yeah, so it's just a metaphor for like it's
her being like what, a verbal like tornado?
Wind. Well, no, I mean it's a metaphor for speeding up when you talk. So it's not saying like she blows air out of her face, although technically that's what speaking words is. But gusts is it's just. It's not a direct. It's not saying. Yeah.
No, it's the
thing.
It works. It's like 9/10 of a joke, but then as soon as you try and look at it, it just kind of falls apart. It's like a shortbread cookie of a joke. As soon as you try and push too hard on it, it just kind of starts crumbling.
No, I think it's fine. I don't think it falls apart at all.
Oh, maybe it's just me then.
I think you're not. Yeah. You're applying a different. See, this is the other thing. Well, yes. Explaining jokes again. But yeah, every joke can be looked at from different angles and different, like, you basically just define different terms.
Well, that's why we've got like 100 different punchlines for why did the chicken cross the road.
Yeah, exactly. Because the word cross can have very different, sometimes similar and slightly different meanings, but yeah, cross has, I don't know, how many definitions in the dictionary, depending on the dictionary.
I think it's about 4 or 5, just basic definitions, not including antiquated and obscure.
Why did the chicken cross the road? Because the
FBI was putting pressure on it.
What do you get when you cross a chicken and a road?
Omelets?
Weird joke.
That's okay. I mean, kids tell weird jokes too, sort of thing. They don't always make sense, but for some reason, the stuff I see online, like kids' jokes, and it's like I wind up laughing at them. Like, how many different types of snakes are there? 17. For some reason, when I read that one, I had a chuckle.
Oh, you laughed?
That.
Oh, yeah,
like I don't know why, but like given my low expectations for kids and their joke-telling abilities, for some reason that made me chuckle the first time I heard it.
That's true. That's another thing. Yeah, speaking of comedy writing, jokes work with basically the half of a joke is contained in the reader already. So you're basically your half of your work is done, but your job is to find where that reader thinks they're going and just alter it enough, or say, "Hi, you thought you were getting this, and you get this," and then that's where your humor is produced.
I won't lie. I have a number of lines I use at work in front of the customers, and my coworkers have tried the same lines, and they don't get any smiles, they don't get any chuckles. They just get people like looking at them like just disappointment, just such deep disappointment in the customer's eyes when they try the lines. But when I give them, it's like, oh, that's so bad. You must be a father. It's like, yeah, that's my bad dad joke.
That's
for the
their
hour.
Tone of voice. Oh, that's so bad.
Some of them are, when they go in with that. Other people are like, oh, you're a dad, aren't you? It's like, yeah, that was my bad dad joke for the hour. If I don't vent them out, they just go bursting out at home, and my wife and kid don't deserve that many bad jokes. So I have to vent them off at work here.
Well, you do technically have a podcast if you ever feel the need to.
No, and inflict that upon our listeners? No, they don't deserve jokes that bad.
Although, I mean, you occasionally make jokes on the pod. Yeah,
I can't help it, man. Like, a good line has to be said. But yes, going back to the original thing, the smack talk sort of thing, the boast and all that. I think everyone could benefit because, if you can deliver a good boast, sort of thing, it improves your self-confidence and improves people's opinions of you, and everyone just has a little fun time and a small chuckle, so everyone's just slightly better off.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make them believe that you're the greatest, but it gives.
It's like a social lubricant, is what it is, really.
I mean, it's just funny. I mean, and they laugh and they like you because you were funny and you made them laugh, so they enjoy that and like you for that reason. And then they also people like to. They just naturally they like to yes and jokes, so they like to carry on with the theme. That's why Chuck Norris jokes. I mean, obviously Chuck Norris is.
I kind of preferred it back when it was the Bill Brasky jokes, but
okay.
It works,
Oh yeah, Bill, yeah.
No matter who it is, it technically works. I mean, I've heard it with Vin Diesel. Apparently, Vin Diesel was the popular one before Chuck Norris really managed to get in there and just explode out to a meme.
Yeah, so. There's a hint of irony in it, and a hint of just this is just funny, and there's also a hint of he's kind of he does know how to kind of he knows a little bit of martial arts. I don't know how much he actually knows, but then there's this character on screen that is sort of weirdly exaggerated and does he swings and doesn't even hit the guy, and the guy flies. Stuff like that. So you get this.
The insurance company wouldn't let them hit each other. They didn't buy enough insurance on that.
Yeah, and then everybody wants to yes and the joke, so they make their own Chuck Norris jokes, and they inflate it and improve it, and that's great for if you're Chuck Norris, because then you sort of go viral and you get a resurgence in popularity, and he knows it's silly and it's ironic in a way, but he at the same time he's willing to he'll make appearances and he'll sometimes he might raise money for charity on it and stuff like that. So yeah.
Chuck Norris for the cure for cancer. Donate enough money, he'll shed some tears. This is with the old joke. Chuck Norris says tears can cure cancer.
Tears cure cancer.
However, he can't cure any cancer because Chuck Norris never cries.
I do wonder too. You see Kim Jong Un now. Although Kim Jong Il had probably the peak of this. I don't know if they still do this for Kim Jong-un in North Korea, but they had officially they had stories like, he hit a hole-in-one.
Yes, I remember the stuff the story of Kim Jong-il's life was he could walk by the age of 3 weeks old. He was speaking, at 6 months, and he wrote his first opera at the age of 2 years old.
Yeah, exactly, and
he's written 1,500 books before he became leader of the Democratic North Republic of Korea. Yada yada.
When we see this in the West, it looks like they're being fairly straightforward. It looks like there's no irony in it. But I always have to wonder.
I find that just makes it even funnier that they're trying to pass it off. It's like a classic Wild West tall tale, of Pecos Bill and all that sort of thing, Paul Bunyan with their tall tales and just absolute ridiculousness. And it's like no, these guys are actually trying to make you believe it, and they're telling basically the same sort of stories. And it's like that makes it even more hilarious.
I always wondered, though, if the people in North Korea, the original people who told those stories, if they weren't actually a little bit, had a wink in their eye when they said it or something like that.
What if, okay, now guys listen here. What if we convince everybody that he has written 1,500 books before he turned 20? It's like, yeah. There's no way the leaders will, pass that. There's no way he'll accept that as part of his like history and official story. And it does, and it passes, and everyone's like, oh my God, he bought it. Okay, everyone keep a straight face. And then nobody actually buys the story except for him, and it's like an emperor's new clothes sort of thing.
Well, it's like a little bit. Also, like, imagine somebody telling that story as like their own little sort of satire. They're like, I'm going to really get him with this because I'm going to tell this outrageous story about, Kim Jong-il, who, when he was a little kid, and like, this is really going to I'm going to sort of rib him on this. And like maybe
he was attacked by 2 tigers when he was 3 years old, and he killed them both barehanded.
And then the guy who tells that story or invents the story or writes it or whatever, he's like looking at Kim Jong-il. He's like, because he's in a way he's kind of make fun of him, but Kim Jong-il is just stone faced. He's like,
yes, that happened. That was
a
fake kid. He's like, oh my God, he's going along with it. He thinks it's serious.
Now we all have to go along with it.
Which accidentally somehow manages to make North Korea one of the funniest lands on Earth, barring the human rights abuses.
And we all laugh at it's the laughing stock of the world. We all laugh at.
We laugh at the leaders, but we don't laugh at the poor people that have to put up with it.
I mean,
they got the raw end of that joke,
kind
man.
Of suffering for that for our amusement, but.
Well, they could always try and pave the demilitarized zone in the middle. Put a strip down the center and then call the North Koreans chickens and see how many of them can cross to the other side. And then we can finally get a definitive answer. And then the whole thing winds up starting, living, and ending as one joke.
The giant joke that killed 1 billion people. Oh, no. Wouldn't be...
Not yet, but the North Korean regime hasn't ended yet, so give them time. They'll add to their numbers yet.
Does Korea have more than 40 million? Or
not anymore.
I think Japan's 100 million. So
Japan is so populous, you can put all of Canada in their Tokyo metropolitan area.
Yeah, Canada's 35 million. I think Korea is probably 40 to 50 million.
That's the thing is you can't even rely on the numbers because it's what they say they have.
Yeah. Well, I think South Korea you can probably count.
Oh, so it's like 1984, the whole bit with Ingsoc, where they say they produced that, and the guy, there's even like a paragraph about like how many boots they made. It's like they may not have made any boots at all. They're just saying they made this many boots for the sake of it. They're saying it. Mm-hmm. Who knows what the real number is? Because the people giving you the information are so effectively reliable as the narrator in this case.
Yeah, but I know North Korea is less populous than South Korea. I know that much.
Yeah, the brutal dictatorships where you can't even feed your people
and
tend
also,
to produce lower numbers.
I think they have negative growth. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, now that people are getting out. And the word's getting in too. Like they got like a legal one of the prime things to smuggle into North Korea is illegal cell phones.
Oh yeah.
So the families can speak across the borders because when they divided the Koreas up, you weren't able to say, okay, you're part of this family. 51% of the families in South Korea, so okay, move all the rest of your family to South Korea. So they did cut a number of families that way. And so that's one of the things you smuggle in there is just like phones so people can find out what's going on in the outside world.
Yeah, well, I remember hearing about basically what happens if half your family does escape from North Korea into South Korea or whatever.
And the rest of you get tossed in prison for 3 generations worth.
Yeah, there's that, and also because there isn't like cell phones and communications. Basically, you just don't know what happens to the rest of your family.
That's basically the rest of the world.
Yeah.
For North Korea though, it's like.
But
you don't know. It's just like there's no word. Again, it's like 1984 in there. How big is Ingsoc? like they say it's 1/3 of the planet sort of thing for landmass and all that, and what used to be the British Isles is now known as like landing strip 1 and all that sort of thing. But with the inherent unreliable nature of the government there saying, oh yeah, we made like 50 million pairs of shoes this year, it's like how big is it really? You can't tell. You don't know. Everything outside of what you can actually see with your own senses is effectively nothing. It's just stories and ghosts and vapor and mist. It's just nothing. It's messed up, man.
Yeah. That was a weird tangent.
Tangents on tangents.
Move on to
yes.
Stuff we've been up to.
Yeah, what you been doing this week and things that never really happened?
Not a lot as far as games go. I think basically Minecraft was my biggest expedition, and my Minecraft adventures was pretty much just flattening out an island. So a lot of digging dirt with shovels and digging stone with pickaxes. So just tons and tons. I think I wore out like 7 of the better shovels, like efficiency and unbreaking shovels. 7 shovels. 7 of the best shovel. And
That's a lot of shovels.
Shoveled a lot of dirt. And then 2 or 3 of the best pickaxes. But yeah, I ended up with a nice flat island and a nice grassy space with it's in the middle of the ocean, so it's a perfect spot for spawning animals, like out of nowhere, because I think the game should run that way. I should be able to stand in the middle of that, and I might have to go AFK for a while. But basically, monsters animals,
passive mobs.
Yeah, cows and sheep and chickens and pigs should start appearing there, and then I'll have sort of a method of generating those like infinitely.
So wait, it just suddenly occurred to me: is an area that has grass should spawn the neutral mobs.
Yeah.
So does that mean when I take my world in Minecraft, my void world that I'm making, and I put that over into a fixed world, so that monsters and all that things should spawn naturally once again, I'll have to worry about random mobs, neutral mobs spawning on my tree farm areas because there's grass around there?
I feel like it might happen, yeah.
Boy, will I be surprised if that happens.
Yeah, I think it might have to be exposed to the sky, too.
Oh, no, okay, so I'm putting a cap on these things.
You could probably put a roof on that might help.
What's the thing? I've got a nice little round base, and I've got a thing underneath, and so it's effectively going to look like a canister.
Oh, yeah.
A canister large enough to hold trees, 2 golems, and some ender portal chest things.
If you do find that happening, though, all you have to do to stop it is the game will look around in neighboring chunks to see if there are any animals already. And if there's more than, it's a fairly low number, I think it's like 17 animals within a certain area, then it won't actually spawn any new ones. So if you do have that problem, just put it like somewhere in the vicinity, put a little cage of 17
I do have a
or
monster spawner, and I can make 17 chickens in a very short period of time. So what I could do then is hollow out the bottom level of my spot, because right now it's 2 levels deep for the grass, because I wanted to hide this chunk generator, so it would always load up the chunk and always be running, along with a light areas to make sure there's light for things. I don't need monster prevention at this point, but I like the light, right? So you're saying I can just like hollow out that bottom area, toss 17 chickens down at the bottom, and then just like leave and just let them remain like these subterranean chickens?
I think that would I think I'm not an expert on how the rules exactly work, but that's my belief right now, is that would solve, if you have a problem, that would solve it. You might not even have that problem.
Check out the beat as the DJ revolves it. Sorry, lyric quote. Weird.
So yeah.
The concept of me having subterranean chickens as a matter of course is going to be a weird one, but we'll see how it goes when I move the world over.
Yeah. I think that basically covers what I've been up to in gaming. I've kind of had a busy week as far as work and comedy shows, which are in a way kind of like storytelling, but not much else to tell there. So yeah, basically dug a lot of dirt, dug a lot of stone, got some flat islands.
Dig it.
Yeah, that's about it. What did you get up to?
I had a pretty busy work week myself, but I did manage to get a few things in. Minecraft, I was playing as well. I managed just to muggle around, get a few more concepts in. I did some work in trying to build statues, and prettify up the area. 'Cause, I mean, I can build a spot that'll store my stuff, but I want to make it look good as well. So I'm taking some time, doing some investing, and doing some play work just to see how will this look this way if I build it like that, and then extrapolate out. But I didn't get a chance to do too much on Minecraft this week. Because I was doing some save scumming and copying. As I said, like, my world is a little broken. Creatures haven't been spawning in there in a very long time. And so I came up with the concept, like, I'm going to have to make them spawn to get some stuff I'm going to need. And so I wound up, because I have some creatures stored in jars thanks to one of my magic mods. So I moved the creatures into a jar into one of my Mistcraft worlds, copied my Mistcraft world, and then looted it, reloaded just the Mistcraft world, and then just kept looting it until I got enough that I could pop the top off of them and get a soul shard with enough so that they can generate should I need them. Which means I did get some progress done, but it was really slow, and I really didn't like myself about it because it felt cheap.
I see.
But what's done is done, and I kind of needed to do it. I was running low on gunpowder. And all that stuff. So I wound up getting like a creeper spawner, which I am thinking I'm going to wind up regretting. Just so bad. Just two, like every 20 seconds, 2 random creepers pop in somewhere very close by to me. Like, how could that possibly go right? But I also got some witches to spawn. So if I need, maybe I'll just do through the witches because they're a little less boomy. Although,
do they drop gunpowder too?
Yeah, it's one of their potential drops.
Yeah.
Although there is in one of my magic mods like an amulet I can put on. It's called like the feline amulet, and that'll prevent like creepers from walking up to you and blowing themselves up. They'll try and run away.
Yeah.
So I might have to make that just to wear it if I need to farm some more creepers. But such is how it goes. I did get the thing is I used to play the cookie clicker game. It was mimetic, like it was a couple of years ago now, I suppose. I believe it was a couple of years ago, and
okay, yeah, I don't remember when cookie clicker. Yeah.
It was big. It was a thing you'd find it in like comics and comments and all that fun stuff. And I clicked it, like I found, oh hey, I still got the link up over in my button. Click the link. And, oh, hey, look, it starts up, and like the guy's apparently done some work with it. One of the things is why I stopped playing was like there's nothing new. I was just going over the same thing over and over again with a very slight increase in speed thanks to the heavenly chips I was accruing from my work in every game that carried over.
Okay.
And so I started up again. Hey, there's some new stuff going on there, and I started playing it. And, like, when you restart the game, what happens is there's reincarnation. So you spend some time in like the afterlife, and you can spend some of those heavenly chips you've gotten through getting so much work done into getting benefits, things here and there. And I like that. I found that to be like suddenly a very appealing thing because it wasn't so much that all of a sudden you restart the game and you start from scratch. There's a little pause in between. Now, what do you want to do? Do you want to improve this? Do you want to try and get this done? Do you want to spend your cookie points, your heavenly chips on... one of the paths that you can do is when the game is not open and running, you can still get part of your chips in. And it'll be like for an hour, you get 30% chip speed, and then it drops down by to 10% of that. And then the more points you spend up on that, the longer it goes and the more returns are. So at a certain point, you get something like 85% of your regular running speed for up to a week before it goes down to and really throttles itself back. And that's pretty good. I'm liking the fact that it's like if you want to tailor this to your style, idle versus I'm on every day, as opposed to like once a week sort of thing. Like you can make that viable for both paths, and I dig that. That's very nice. And I must be getting better at it because, as I said, I started up this week, and in the last 2 days of playing, I've gotten as many of these heavenly chips as I had gotten the entire year I played beforehand. It was just like I've gotten so much better at knowing how to work and game a system in this sort of regard that I can min-max to the best. And it's kind of nice to see myself being that much better at it.
You're better at Cookie Clicker.
I'm better at this weird passive game that requires some tactical knowledge of how to set things up to run. That said, there's some things I haven't done. Like, this is a game that has the Grandma Apocalypse. Grandmas wind up melding with something like Elder Abomination thing to produce the end of the world. And when that happens, these things called wrinklers come up and they start nibbling at your cookie. And they're actually a net benefit. For every cookie they nibble, they generate 1.1 cookies. So after a while, you pop them and gain more cookies than if you just left your darn cookie alone.
Okay.
But Zoe saw that, and she's like, Daddy, those things are eating your cookie. Get rid of them, they're eating your cookie. And so it was kind of interesting to see how quickly my daughter popped herself into the game on this sort of thing. It's like, Daddy, things are eating your cookie. Get rid of them,
Yeah. I like it, the game sort of gives you clues as to what's, sort of detrimental and what's good, and it can play with those expectations.
Yeah, like the Grandma Apocalypse sounds pretty darn bad, but you actually gain a pretty good net bonus on your cookie production provided you're running it. Even with like an auto clicker going on, you can get some real good things happening. That said, my personal play preference doesn't involve the Grandma Apocalypse. I stop just before the grandmas get their one unified hive mind going, and I just wait for golden cookies to pop up. Because I've got things set up where I can have an overlap on them, and so I can get like 7 times production for I think it's almost 3 minutes at a time now.
Okay.
And there's a chance, a very small but a chance, of getting a 777 times a clicking bonus.
Oof.
And I can get both of that. So, 777 times by 7, and then I've got an auto clicker, so if I just push F6, I can click once every I think it's 10 milliseconds, and I can just absolutely boom, like suddenly a huge explosion of cookie production that dwarfs everything else I've done previously in the game. And so, that's how I used my change in playstyle to figure out what I wanted to do, what I liked to do, to somehow double my, heavenly clicker, heavenly chip output in 2 days. So it's like, wow, I'm getting really good at analyzing the system. Yay, I've leveled up my gamership. At least in this sub-gaming regard.
All right, yeah.
But that said, I think the biggest thing for me this week is I got a book.
You got a new book.
Yes, it was a mix between my birthday present and a Father's Day present. My birthday was, back in April, and Father's Day hasn't happened yet. And my wife said she wanted to get me that, a book, because I'd wanted to get it for a while. But I couldn't just say, this is like a $60 book. Like, I'm not worth $60 for one present. Get me a $60 book. And so we decided to make it like a 2 present sort of thing. So it's like $30 for a book. Yeah, it seems a little bit more reasonable for me. Yeah. So it's the 2 presents rolled into one, and it's The Curse of Strahd, the Ravenloft adventure for the 5th edition.
So a new book.
Yes. That's the thing. It's kind of like a redone version of the old Adventure to Castle Ravenloft from the the I series module, I believe it was.
Back in 2nd edition?
Yeah, done up for 3rd edition with some nice new stuff and some expansions here to help reflect the change of the Ravenloft as being, it's not just solitary area into a centerpiece of an entire demi-plane of horrible, abominable existence. And now that I've got that, I wound up working almost twice as much in a week that I normally do, so I haven't had the time and energy to really devote to it. So it's like,
So you got a book you didn't read.
I want to read it. I'm staring at it. I'm looking at it. It's like, ooh, I want to read that book so good. And it's just tantalizingly just staring back at me. But I can't read it, not yet. But now that I've got it, and I can see how Ravenloft is working in 5th edition, I can finally start going on more of the hard stuff for my Ravenloft adventure module that I've got planned up that I can put out on the DM's Guild. I've got the story, I've got the notion of how everything fits and works together, but I hadn't been able to do anything else because I wanted to see how Ravenloft has changed from 2nd and 3rd edition to 5th. I skipped 4th. And so now that I've got it, I can read it and analyze it and see how it goes so that I can actually generate stats for my own adventure and maybe put that one out into publishing for the world to see and enjoy.
Yeah.
So hooray! That was the biggest impediment to my continuing my adventure writing. Now, that's only half of the story, though. Because I got this at Skyhaven Games. And right next to Skyhaven Games, there's a Mr. Tubbs ice cream parlor.
In case our listeners are in Victoria and don't already know about Skyhaven Games.
It's a nice little spot just offside of the Tillicum Mall.
Tillicum Mall in Victoria, British Columbia. Actually, technically in Saanich.
Yeah, technically Saanich.
Saanich, British Columbia.
Just north of Esquimalt.
Skyhaven Games.
Yes, it's a great place to go. My daughter was quite happy to be there, looking around, seeing things.
They're not a sponsor.
No. She has something. She sat at the
them.
table. She's like, "Daddy, I'm going to play games with you here." And it's just like, yeah, it really had a nice, inviting atmosphere, which, admittedly, not all games shops have. As like a thing, it's a stereotype. Like a game shop is like ill lit and it smells of musky nerds, and it's like really cramped because there's so much books and so much product that is really narrow, passageways going through there.
Ooh, that sounds great.
Like that, as a nerd, I'm be pretty boss. It's just like, ooh, this is like a treasure vault. I wanna look at each little thing on these massive tall walls. But that doesn't exactly appeal to everybody. And Skyhaven Games does have enough open table space where people are playing cards and having a nice fun time that it does feel inviting. So
yeah.
Yay. But right next to Skyhaven Games is Mr. Tubbs' ice cream parlor. Which my wife had never been into, and I don't know why she'd never been in there, but she'd never been, and so I take her in afterwards, and like she was just expecting a little like classic ice cream parlor style. She didn't realize at the back they have games in like it's like the Chuck E. Cheese style,
like arcade type games.
Not quite arcade games. They're more like carny games or thing. You do a game, you win like a certain amount of tokens. You redeem the tokens for prizes.
Okay.
And so we spent like a grand total of like $5 there. Because that's all. That includes like the kids' ice cream cone we got.
Oh, yeah.
But we spent some money on the games, play a quarter, like push the button to throw out your little punch and then smack ducks over. The more ducks you smack over, the more tickets you get. And we managed to have a lot of fun with that. And so I even got herself like a couple of little prizes to have some fun with. And my wife was so impressed that when I asked her what does she want to do for her birthday coming on up, she's planning. She wants to take it on herself. She wants to take us out for her birthday too. I think it's going to be either like Montana or something else like that. Nice little place to go at. But afterwards she says, well, maybe we can go by Mr. Tubbs and maybe play some more games. It's just a fun time playing some games, some skill, some chance, some luck games, and just having a lot of fun with it. And so it's like, yay, we found a new spot to enjoy some games in a carny style.
That's good. Are they open year-round, or did they just open
year-round, yeah. I believe they're open year-round.
All right.
And it's just a nice little thing. Like, I don't know why my wife had never gone there. I mean, I took her to the bingo parlor across the plaza area from that. Mm-hmm. We've gone to the Shell station. My wife knows all about the M&M meat store at the edge of that spot. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, she had just never gone in. And because of that, we now have another spot we can go if we want to spend just a few dollars, have some fun, and get Zoe a nice little cheap prize. Her prize, her main prize from the last time, was a skeleton pirate. And that makes me happy that that's out of all the things
life size, like an actual skeleton of an actual pirate?
No, it's just a small little toy. It's like a skeleton with 2 hatchets and like some pirate regalia sort of style on there. But it is only slightly bigger than the skeletons in my Hero Quest game. So if I can get a few of those for Zoe and start up a concept of like her fighting skeletons and all that, maybe I can seg her into Hero Quest a year or two earlier than the recommended age.
Nice, yeah.
So, you got to get them when they're young, train the nerd up early. But yeah, it's nice because, well, these games are games of chance. They're like very abstracted sort of games. Like there's 6 alligators coming at you. You got to smack them on their snout before they'll wind up and bite you.
It's like not really, Whack-A-Gator?
It's kind of like Whack-A-Gator.
Okay.
Or like as I said, there's you got a little button to push that moves out like a punching, like a boxing glove, and you got to knock over ducks. You got to time it to punch right, but it doesn't go like every time you go. There's a certain like reflex or thing that you can't punch again, and you got to time it like 1, 2, get the second duck, and get the second duck. So there's little stuff there, and Zoe she's at the right size. It's like heighted for her, so she can see what she's doing and really play the game well. And it gives out a decent amount of tickets for a kid's game sort of thing. So that way she can still wind up playing the game multiple times over and get like I'll call it a decent reward, but depending on who you talk to, there's no decent rewards on those games. They're all, they're all like a fleecing sort of thing. You're never going to get your value on it, but you're not trying to get your value, and you're trying to have some fun and then get something else to top it off.
Okay, yeah. Right.
But yeah, like we didn't even play half the games they had in the back there. And we still had a fun time enjoying it. So yay, a nice little bit, because we were adventurous enough to go through that one door that apparently my wife had never gone through before. We wound up having a nice little adventure, which I believe heavily translates out to most gaming situations.
Yeah.
You got to have the courage to go open that one last door and see what's beyond and see what sort of fun can be had.
Yeah, cool.
But we have a topic. We've actually had this topic for a while on our back burner. A number of weeks ago, I saw the old movie, Calling Dr. Death. Not a bad movie in told. It's about a doctor who specializes in hypnosis to cure like the mental ails of his patients. Who goes, who finds out his wife is having an affair. And he goes out driving on a Friday afternoon and wakes up like Monday morning. And he has no recollection of what's happened, in that intervening period. But you know what? His wife is now dead. Dun dun dun. Did he do it? He doesn't even know. So it's kind of like a game of Clue in that way, where you can be the murderer and not even know it.
So it's a murder mystery.
Yes. But it's like, so who killed? Was it the husband? The jealous husband. The thing is, he wanted to get a divorce, but the wife didn't want to give up the prestige of being like a notable doctor's wife. So she wasn't gonna allow for a divorce. And back then, that's how things had to go. So was it the husband who wanted to get out of the horrible marriage? Was it the the man on the side, the lover boy? Was it the nurse who has affections for the doctor and can't stand to see the abuses his wife is heaping on him, or even let's see how to put this. The cheating wife, the guy the wife was cheating on was a married man himself. So his wife, makes an appearance, and she, as it turns out, is paraplegic. She suffered an accident and she has no longer use of her legs.
All right. So she can't possibly kill anybody.
But that's the thing. The doctor specialized in curing stuff through hypnosis. It shows in the beginning a lady who couldn't speak, not because she had lost her vocal cords, but because she had psychological barriers to her ability to speak. And he was curing her of that through hypnosis and all that sort of thing. So it raised the specter of the possibility maybe she's not really wheelchair bound at all. Maybe it's just like a psychological barrier. In a fit of rage, she had a blackout moment as well, and stepped up, and actually just went up and snicker snack, sliced and killed.
And that's a thing that comes up in the movie?
No, but it's definitely a possibility based on how things are presented.
Okay,
I
like
sure
anything is
wound up
possible.
getting 2 or 3 scenes and a mention sort of thing, so it probably wasn't her. But yes, you got the husband, you got the lover, you got the lover's wife, you got the nurse. That's like 4 people right there, 4 suspects in this murder mystery. And at a certain point, I was watching the movie and I'm thinking to myself, I think there's too many suspects.
Yeah.
I'm not liking this. And I think it's because I prefer only a few suspects, like whodunits, one of these 3 people. And when you keep bringing in more people with more potential suspects, or maybe you're bringing in a person that doesn't seem to be a suspect, you start suspecting them. Maybe it wasn't any of these 3 people I think did it. What if it was the person who seems like they're the innocent one? It's always the person you least suspect after all.
Okay, yeah. Well, isn't that like a technique of like instilling sort of paranoia in the viewer, and like it gives you an uneasy feeling of you don't know who to trust or what to believe. I think that's in a way that's a useful tool in storytelling.
But it's not a bad useful tool. But I found these extra people being brought in as potential suspects wound up detracting from what was a nice psychological mystery. It did an interesting technique wherein it was Lon Chaney Jr. by the way, is the main guy, the doctor.
Okay.
The guy who played the Wolfman back in the day. It had him like giving an inner monologue, so it'd be him like speaking, in the background, but not actually moving.
Like a voiceover?
Yeah, a voiceover sort of thing, as this internal monologue of, could it have been me? I have no recollection of the full 2 days. How could I prove this was me? How could I prove it was not me? Sort of thing. And so it wound up being like really like his self-doubt was a huge part of it, for him trying to figure out whether or not it was actually him, and if not, who could have possibly done it if it wasn't like the jealous husband sort of thing that wanted to get out of a bad marriage.
Hey, can we spoil it? Like,
it's an old movie, I suppose we can.
So who was it?
It was the nurse.
Oh,
yes. She wanted to be more than just a nurse, but she couldn't be more than just a nurse while he was married. And with the wife saying no to any potential for a divorce, something had to happen.
And how did she do it?
I won't spoil that.
Oh.
I'll give away the answer, but I won't give away the solution.
If she's a nurse, I'm guessing she has access to medication and stuff.
Actually, it wasn't medication, but I won't spoil it. But yeah, it wound up being like okay, I can see these circumstances of events happening. They sound plausible. It's like a murder mystery, so it's never 100% plausible. Like they got to do a somewhat out there sort of style.
Okay.
But it's like I've heard a lot worse for stuff. For how did they possibly get this done? It's like no, it's actually pretty down to earth, believable, I suppose.
Okay, so your problem is too many suspects.
Yes,
right.
Yes. And that's the thing, though. It's like I know the more suspects you have, the less screen time each one of them gets, the less in-depth you can analyze all their motives, their style, and personality to figure out who done it.
Okay, I see.
So what about you, Josh? Do you think is like in the concept, is there like an upper limit for suspects? Do you think there is possible to have too many suspects? Is it possible to have too few suspects?
Well, I mean, if you have... It becomes if you have lower number of suspects, like only one, then it's not a murder mystery. It's more of a chase, or like let's find this fugitive or whatever.
Unless it's told from the perspective of the one suspect.
Yeah, or like he's trying to get away from the police or something.
How can I prove it wasn't me? Do I even know it wasn't me?
Yeah.
That's good psychological, man. That's
so, that's just a different kind of... It's not a murder... Well, it might be a bit of a mystery.
Well, the thing is once
different.
He's able to rule himself out as the suspect, he does like some follow-up stuff and figures out like maybe one or two other suspects. But then you don't wind up with 3 suspects. You'll wind up with 1 and then later 2 suspects. So that way you still keep the number of suspects fairly low, and you can move on from Act 1 to Act 2.
Yeah, and obviously, like, if you have 100 or 1,000 suspects, like, that's very unmanageable.
Well, there's the murder on the Orient Express. Was there like a dozen potential suspects? It was.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of logistics and being, like you said, just can you tell all those stories, or how do you rule out?
I suppose it's easier to have a lot more suspects in a book. Because nobody gets frustrated. I've been reading this book for 2 hours and I still don't know who does it.
Like each chapter could rule out some person. It's also like it's a little bit like a game of 20 questions, in that you start out with like anything this could be anything in the world, and your first couple questions narrow it down like in half or in thirds, like animal, vegetable, mineral. Cuts out.
I suppose instead of 20 questions, you could look at it more like Clue. You can start ruling out, was it in the conservatory?
Yeah.
With the candlestick?
Well, you rule out certain possibilities, and they take out like a big chunk of suspect. It's like, well,
they take out a big chunk.
Everybody who didn't have access to the conservatory is now, not, because they couldn't have been there. So, that's the structure of a murder mystery. You could start out with 1,000 suspects, but hopefully in the first chapter you're like, okay, 900 of these people, couldn't have, done it. And then so now you have 100 people to work with, and then you cut out somehow 50, and it's sort of half at a time. I think, and then once you get down to 11, 12, I suppose then you can sort of devote time to each individual person and their own motivations and where they
I suppose you could put them in at the beginning and then just make sure that they stay with as they're whittled out.
Sure, yeah. I mean that's another sort of principle of the mystery is that you don't want to just suddenly have a character show up near the end of the book and be like, oh, it was that guy.
I don't know, man. Like from what I heard of War and Peace, they just bring in and drop out characters all willy-nilly.
I feel like War and Peace was kind of historical a little bit, so
yeah,
I give it a little bit of a pass.
It's a little bit more of a leeway because people just tend to just be around in a world with so many billion people.
Yeah, well, what was the world population in 1850?
Let's call it 3 billion.
It might not have been a billion by that. Well, yeah, it could be.
We'll call it 3 billion just to make sure it's an easy number to work with.
It might have been.
You know, even if it's only 1 million people in the world, there's still a lot of a number of people to write into a story potentially.
Yeah,
but yeah, I read about 1 million different characters in a book.
I read the first chapter of War and Peace, and that's as far as I got. So I don't know how it ends.
Hey, that's one chapter further than I got.
Oh, okay. Well, apparently you know how it ends, though. So
I know a lot of people come in and go out, and it's just like they get like one little. They're flat characters. They're not like given a lot of character to their characters.
Okay, yeah, but it's a little bit like Tolkien's world in that sense that sometimes what you do is you bring in a flat character in order to give depth to some other aspect of it, just to give the illusion of
who is this elf lord coming in to help at Helm's Deep? Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, it's just a big world. That's the point of throwing him in there is just to show that
this
world
elf is a big deal, so it means something that he's here. That's all you really need to know.
Yeah,
I suppose.
And then the fun thing about that's why so many people like the Tolkien's world is because you can sort of dive down these rabbit trails, and Tolkien has actually written like a backstory for that guy.
He didn't have rabbit trails. He had some sort of rabbit labyrinth going on.
Yeah.
Labyrinth.
Or you can make up a story if you want, or whatever. And that's
there's room enough for fan fiction in there. It's a big world.
But I think just logistically speaking, I guess I don't know if there is a number, 8 to 12 suspects, and generally throughout a book.
But I don't think you can get away with 8 to 12 suspects in a movie. That's an awful lot of suspects for hopefully only about 2.5 hours for a thing.
Am I wrong in sort of this assumption? Like I'm not actually that up on mysteries or murder mysteries or whatever.
Well, it's this thing though. So let's say it's a 2-hour movie and you've got 8 suspects. Yeah. That's 4 suspects an hour to have for screen time. That's 15 minutes per person. And, not including scenes where there's more than one person. But that doesn't leave a lot to delve into who could have done it, why, where, when, and what these people are like. Because it's not enough just to have otherwise you might as well just have like sock puppet theater going on. 8 sock puppet potential murderers here.
I think you could do it with sock puppets.
That might be an interesting twist.
What I'm asking though is I think it's probably okay if you can eliminate in a non-linear way. It's like in the first 15 minutes of the show, sure you can have 3 or 4 other suspects that aren't that interesting, but you just sort of get rid of them in the matter of course to maybe to display the personality or the investigative style of our hero or investigator. So you get them out of the way fairly quickly. So there's those, and then there's a bigger suspect. Get them out of the way.
You could do it in a TV series because that's basically how Twin Peaks worked.
Yeah,
everyone's a suspect, and you start whittling them down.
Yeah.
Not by huge chunks, but it was more like one person.
But I was going to ask you, is this how mysteries work? Is that they sort of eliminate the possibilities sort of one at a time, or is there sort of a culmination of evidence? And then everybody's still a suspect right until the final scene, and then they're all in a room, and they all could be suspects. I guess that's...
I'm glad you all came. That's why I called you here. One of us is a murderer. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the more common version of a mystery.
It's a well-done trope, I'll say that.
And I always feel like those, sort of should be structured in a way that the reader feels good if they sort of can figure it out.
Which
in
is why
some
nobody
way.
likes it if it's just the guy who showed up in the last 20 minutes was him.
Yeah.
Except for that one episode of Scooby-Doo, where it turned out to be the old Scooby-Doo mysteries is the gang comes in, there's something happening, and then you got like three people, and it's one of these three people who could have done it. And it's one of them is always like a cop in disguise, the other one's just some like other person, and then there's the person who's doing the crime.
Yeah.
And then there was the one of the I think it's the What's New Scooby-Doo series where it wasn't either of those three, and Velma got it wrong, and she was really unhappy because we've never even seen that guy before. That's no fair. This doesn't count against my record. And it was pretty much like a lampshade hanging on that.
I feel like that final scene though, like in the case where a movie has a final scene where they gather all the people in all the suspects in the same room, and he's like eliminating them one at a time. That is a sort of a condensed version, or it's a story unto itself, and within that you have the same structure of eliminating sort of one at a time.
I do appreciate the recap on some of those stuff in that style.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like eliminate three people all at once. Well, you and you were all we know that you were
doing your Three Stooges act together, so it couldn't have been either one of you, so it couldn't have been all of you.
Yeah, so you get rid of them. And that's why I like the idea of the 20 questions as sort of like cutting out half and half and half and half until you get down to, there's only two left.
That said, I do also like the one where it winds up being that final piece of information has finally come into light, and the person realizes that the one other person they're with is the murderer. So then they're alone with a murderer. And then it always winds up being that the murderer just, I killed one person, might as well kill another. Hacky. And, I mean, that's the thing, is like people tend to murder because of reasons. So, like, yeah, that's right, you got me. It was me. I'll give myself up now. I'm not going to murder you, too. I murdered this person for a very specific reason, and that's not good enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people would murder, like, because, I'm afraid to go to jail, so I'll have to murder you, too, I
My
suppose.
hands are too small. There's no way I can hold the soap. It's going to drop all over the place.
So, yeah, some people might, kill it. But, yeah, if they're sort of a normal person who killed for whatever reason.
They pushed my final button. I couldn't let them do this. I had to kill them to stop them. Yeah,
then you still have that. You still have something moral in you that you're not a killer by nature. So yeah, you won't be like, what solution do I use? Well, I guess I have to kill you too. Cause, yeah,
which that's the thing is I do find I give myself up to be a lot more plausible, especially when it comes about like that piece of evidence is finally revealed, and then they give themselves up, as opposed to the far more common trope whereby they get forced into admitting they did it, and then they give themselves up. She's like, yes, I killed him because of this. And it's just like, well, congratulations, you just said you killed him. Oh, darn, you got me, you master detective.
Yeah.
When it really is just like, if they had stayed quiet, then nobody could have got him on anything because they never admitted to the crime.
Yeah, and you might appeal to the person's ego or
you want the truth? You can't handle the truth. And then he goes out to explain exactly why he called down the condition that killed the soldier.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I suppose.
Well, we didn't say what movie that was from.
Oh, hey, there we go.
But yeah, on that point, what was I going to say?
Forcing their hand.
You can appeal to their, because people generally think of themselves as moral and good and doing the right thing. So if you accuse them of, you murdered him because of this selfish reason, and you said, I did not, I murdered them because some
if I had let them live, something I could not have tolerated at all would have happened.
Yeah, so they're in their minds they're sort of justifying themselves, but of course they're at the same time admitting that they killed someone. So yeah,
but they had a good reason for it.
Yeah, and in fact, maybe in sentencing, that might come into play.
Hopefully, I suppose. I mean, I always appreciate a person who has a reason.
Yeah, or it might downgrade something from first-degree murder or to manslaughter. Or
a
something.
Good reason. Killing somebody for their Nike shoes is not a good reason. That was a thing back in the day when Nike shoes were so expensive, and it was like, you got your shoes, man. You wear these shoes out, you're gonna get shot and killed for your shoes, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care, like, knowing that it's like his shoes were so shiny I had to kill him for it. That's not a good reason.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's established.
Yeah. But yeah, I suppose it is very much format dependent on how much counts as too many potential murderers. Because as I say in like Twin Peaks, it's the guy comes into town, everyone's a potential murderer.
Mm-hmm.
And then it winds up, like he whittles off this person who couldn't have been that person, this and that, and as the thing goes on. And that's why people keep tuning in every week to figure out who didn't done it.
It'd be interesting to have like a Wild West series that was like really, like, I don't know,
less episodic, more ongoing.
Well, not. I was going to say call it like Murder Town or something. I don't know if it.
We'll call it Gunpoint.
Gunpoint, Murder Town, where in fact everybody in town, like, sort of, I don't know if it's a prerequisite. Yeah, let's say that this town will not let anybody live there unless they've killed somebody. So, and it's one of these Wild West towns, so it's like, you don't have to go to jail.
Might be an allegory for hell or purgatory, though.
Oh, they call the town Purgatory. It's the town of Purgatory.
Welcome to Purgatory, New Mexico.
And you're not allowed to live there unless you've actually killed somebody. And this is women too, like, so probably maybe.
So how long do children get a chance to be there before they have to kill somebody?
Actually,
you know what? Let's rename this town to Silent Hill, because this is starting to sound more and more like a weird, crazy cult thing going on.
If a kid is born in the town of Purgatory, let's see.
Give them, 12 years?
In fact, yeah, the mayor,
but they also have to kill a dog by age 8.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Maybe we could give them, you have to kill something living. But yeah, there's like some like sort of despot in charge. Like he's like the sheriff or the mayor or whatever. He's a bad guy too. He's killed like hundreds. Let's say hundreds, because this is a mythological Wild West society.
Although it sounds also a little bit like that Quick and the Dead movie too.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Okay, so Gene Hackman is the leader of this town.
Yeah, and he's killed hundreds of people, in like innocents and good guys, and he's kind of a good guy in a way. Like, he has some morals, but he definitely is.
There's a twisted set of morals. I mean, you can't stay in his town unless you kill him.
He's killed bad guys, but he's also killed women and children, and yeah, he's a bad guy, and like people in cold blood. But yes, sort of, he has this weird sense of morality, maybe some kind of religion. I don't know.
Crazy assassin religion.
So he makes the rules, and he's like, if a kid is born here, you got to either like leave with the kid.
Mm-hmm,
or just when the kid turns so old, like he's got to have killed somebody, so in order to
take him out on a hunting trip.
Yeah, and then somebody in that town gets killed, and for some reason people care, I guess,
because it's one of their own. I mean, you don't kill one of your own; you got to kill one of the outsider folks.
Yeah, sure. Say it's one of their own, and so they bring in an investigator who also, for some reason, has killed. And that's why he can't live in other towns, because he's a murderer.
He's an outcast.
So he's like, oh, what am I going to do? Oh, there's this town called Purgatory where I can just sort of live. And then somebody gets killed there, and so he has to investigate. So that's the investigation. But
who's the one that betrayed their oaths?
Yeah, but so this is the twist on the mystery.
I'd watch the hell out of this series. It's like a really fun, twisted little thing going on.
Yeah, is that everybody in town is capable and willing and probably could have
has a history of at least one murder.
Yeah, so like, how do you? It may have been done like you could do one in a prison even. Like
no, forget this. I like this Wild
mystery.
West stuff.
Yeah.
I'm devoted to this, man.
All right.
Purgatory, New Mexico.
Yeah. There you go.
So,
but yeah, that's,
so don't leave me hanging. Who did it?
Who did it?
Yeah, who done it? Who broke the oath and killed one of their own?
Well, yeah. The thing is, it could have been anyone.
Who violated the gunshot covenant?
It was our mayor after all. It's like our head guy in the town. But he was trying to pin it on someone else.
To kill one of your own and then try and pin it on one of the others of your own.
Trying to pin it on one of the other people.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Gene Hackman, I used to respect you.
Yeah, it was him. And then what? And then what is the penalty for killing in the town of killers?
Yeah, that's a good question too, man. I want to hear more about this, man. Keep telling me, keep enthralling me with your story.
The rule is you get shot. Like they don't do hangings, they do shootings in this town. Like that's because they're honorable and they think like a man should die or a woman because they're somewhat.
You should be able to face the person killing you.
Yeah,
not be left hanging in the wind.
But you're not given a gun. That you're just shot and yeah. Yeah, so that's their method is. And
so then the investigator settles down, maybe with a chance at becoming the next mayor sort of thing. He's got good respect, so he's degenerated with the townsfolk.
Yeah, I guess I've just described sort of either a film or an opening episode, because after this...
No, man, this is like the end of like the second season here.
Okay, yeah. So it's a murder mystery that lasts for 2 seasons until we...
To be fair, I mean, that's 1 season more than Twin Peaks managed to get out of theirs. That's the thing. It's like Twin Peaks you were never supposed to figure out who did it. It was never about like which person was the actual killer. It was supposed to be about character studies.
Sure, yeah.
Like, who are these people? And in which case, like I think you could tell a lot of good stories about who are these people in the town of murderers in Purgatory, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you have little sort of offshoot episodes of like, what happens when this character and this character interact, because they both are at least willing to kill, but they have different reasons for it. So how do those clash? Yeah, there's just one person looking at the others as a lesser murderer. Yeah, exactly. I killed to survive. You killed because you wanted the bank money. Yeah, or maybe somebody like killed a woman or a child, and the other guy's like, well, I killed a man. Another grown man. It was a showdown at noon. It was fair. You murdered the innocent. Yeah, something like that. Disgust me. So yeah, I can really dig the potential characters coming out. This seems like it would be a series where people would really like to be in it, because it just seems like such juicy roles for each character. It's not like anyone plays a two-dimensional like Goody Two-Shoes. Everyone's got something. I think so. Yeah, because every character's a murderer. Gene Hackman is the mayor again. Yeah, that's how I did that. Yes, that's good, man. That's a good thing. So then I suppose we can revise my argument on this so many people into so long as you can give them time and character to each, it doesn't really matter the number. Yeah, but I mean, it probably lands in 4 to 5 would be a sort of almost... Because you want so many that you're focused fairly heavily on. So yeah, 4 to 5 that you're relatively... heavily focused. You can have these other suspects, but like I was saying, cut them off in the beginning, eliminate them however you want to do that, and then you end up with 4 or 5 that you can really dig in on and find out. Well, I could definitely see a few in this situation you've presented, where you'd have a situation whereby it's not. It could usually like rule out the innkeeper, so tavern owner sort of guy. So that way you get your nice little base for the detective to be, where it's nice safe ground. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to worry about he's living in the house of a murder. Yeah. And then I suppose like one of the the saloon girls can get taken out of the equation pretty early, and then you can get your wind up like a romantic lead. Yeah, and then I guess like you were saying that you saw 4 or 5 was still felt a little bit like a lot. So yeah, you want your last 2 or 3 suspects you can really focus on them and like really get into like their motivations, their personality. So yeah, you end up with 2 or 3. And I imagine, like, do you think? Let me ask you, what do you think about this? The person who actually did it, should we know the most about them by the end of the movie? Should that be the person we sort of feel the most connection to? Definitely, we should know exactly where they were coming from, and say that yes, if I was that person in their shoes, I'd have done it too. Yeah, okay. And then in a way it becomes their story. Yeah, by the end of the Dr. Death one, it starts off as being the doctor sort of thing. It's like, could he have done it? And he's thinking about that. And then later on, spoiler, it winds up being the nurse who's unhappy with, she has, romantic feelings towards the doctor, and she doesn't like seeing him being, abused by his wife this way. And so she finally does something to stop it. And so it'd be like, yes, if I was in love, if I was the nurse and I was in love with him on this one, I'd have done something too.
I'm just surprised it took me so long to get around to it. So I think there's some very interesting ways to look at it as changing out to be whose exactly it is, because like in this case, for the town of Purgatory, it starts off as being the detective story.
Yeah,
the outcast man coming into the town, the town nobody else wants to be a member of, and finding himself for the first time in a long time feeling at home. Because all the weight of being a murderer is suddenly it's not a weight to bear anymore. Everyone's sharing that weight, so it doesn't feel like a load anymore. And then it winds up more being towards everyone else's. And then you just utilize the detective as like the springboard to the next person.
Yeah. And I like that I picked. Well, I guess I could have created another character and picked them to make it their story too, which is why this is fun because it's very interesting.
Well, you go off on tangents that way. Could it have been? Well, that's the thing. Is mayor? So, like, what about the sheriff? Can you imagine what it'd be like being the sheriff in a town of killers? It's like, I could definitely see him being one of the longer running suspects.
Yeah, I could. Although, like,
being the warden of this penitentiary of the killers.
Picturing him as being kind of like the sheriff who's just always drunk and sort of not really sheriffing too much. Just sort of...
Really? I picture him as being like almost paranoid sort of thing. He knows whatever happens, it could be anyone at any time. Because they've all done the worst.
Interesting. I think that's another interesting...
Yeah, he's out there, he's looking, he's ready, he's standing stiff like a clock. He's always there, man. And when it chimes noon, he's got the gun out, man. He's ready. He's got to be the fastest one on the draw, because everyone knows how to draw a gun in a town of Purgatory.
Yeah, although like...
If you're going to be the sheriff, you've got to be the fastest draw possible if you're going to maintain law.
I like the thought, too, of having our mayor, who's sort of a despot, actually sort of be proven of doing some heinous thing, just sort of right near the beginning of the story, so that we're pretty... Like, we suspect him pretty heavily early on because he's doing these bad things to other people. Like, maybe he kills someone else, but it turns out, he gets away with it because... he was self-defense or something. He
kills the railroad surveyor.
Yeah.
Because it would have meant, like everyone's property around there being, worthless as the railway goes elsewhere. So now, like they bring in a new railway surveyor, and this guy's braggable, and all of a sudden, hey, they're going to be building a railroad through here. It looks like everyone's property values are going to wind up going up. So who can really feel bad about him being the mayor trying to help out all the citizens?
I like it, something like that. And then, so it's like he's not so bad. And then, so we go through a few other suspects.
The cattle baron.
The cattle baron.
It's like, how many people has he really killed? How many people did he leave out in the middle of his vast fields to rot and let the buzzards eat? Yeah,
that could be an interesting twist to have like an innocent person somehow get in there, or somebody who didn't actually kill anybody, like a kid or something who gets this really bad reputation.
So it'd be like the cattle baron's son.
Yeah,
it's actually, as it turns out, too delicate of a personality to actually pull the trigger. His dad killed the guy.
Yeah, but like everybody thinks that he's like
He told everyone it was his son.
Yeah.
400 yards away, shot him dead between the eyes. That's my boy. It really wasn't his boy at all.
Yeah.
So and what happens when the investigator finds out that secret? The innocent in the town of guilty.
Well, yeah, I imagine he wouldn't.
Is it too late to change the name of the town?
Can
we change the name of the town to the town of Guilty?
Guilty. Yeah, we could.
Yeah. Everyone's guilty in Guilty.
I mean, this story does not exist. So at any time, I mean, even if our listeners felt inspired, I think we could probably let go of it and let them have it.
Especially if you're working for like a TV thing, Max. I want to watch this TV series.
I just want to see it done.
Yeah. I'll give it some credits. Based on an idea by Josh and Ryan.
Sure. Yeah.
But. Yeah, what happens when he finds the one innocent in the town of Guilty?
Yeah, well, I imagine he would he wouldn't be interested in sort of letting their secret out unless he had something to gain.
He's still not one of them at this point,
Yeah, like there's no point in just sort of, revealing, oh, that guy's never actually killed anybody, because it's like...
didn't find out who killed this guy, but I found out he didn't kill any guy. So, just putting that out there for you. Gonna keep searching leads.
And then
that's the thing. Would he keep it under his hat and just say, okay, it doesn't matter much one way or another to me because I'm not really one of you yet, or would he use that to get in good with like the cattle baron and be able to call on favors? It's like, I need 3 ranch hands with guns and big fists.
Our hero, I wouldn't have him necessarily blackmail anybody.
Well, not blackmail, but it's like, like now that I know this, I may need to call in favors. Like, I'm going to need 3 of your biggest ranch hands and a good fast horse.
I don't like a half-assed blackmail though.
Oh, okay. Well, how about it doesn't wind up being blackmail? The cattle baron winds up, like, oh God, you're not going to tell, are you? Yeah, no, you can't tell. Like my son.
If he offers, yeah, okay.
It's like,
that's
no,
a little better.
Hey, I'm an investigator, but I'm not a rat. I won't tell anyone. Don't worry. And it's like, thank you. You're not going to regret this. So later, when he finds out, dude, he's going to want up send some serious force. He sends 3 of his ranch hands with a big fist and quick guns.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, you can ally that way.
So yeah, it winds up being like a thank you for being a decent guy. Let me help you out.
Yeah. Although, like, I'm tempted to basically, I would have it's the cattle baron we're talking about now. I would have him try and stab our hero in the back, and sort of be like, because he doesn't believe, like,
not until he realizes at a pivotal moment, it's like, dude, I can actually trust you. You are a trustworthy individual.
Yeah, maybe. Although, yeah, I'm picturing.
In which case, you get character growth for the cattle baron. In this case, it's like, oh. Like, I don't have to be paranoid against everybody trying to betray me. It's like, I've made a friend. Like, I can actually trust someone here.
I probably wouldn't write it that way.
It's a potential.
I would have him attempt to, like, accidentally, have somebody kill our hero, like, by, one of his men goes out.
Stampede! Whoosh.
Yeah, something like that. Or knocks him off a cliff or something. But then, our hero, like, overcomes and like, beats him up or whatever.
So the big question then is, if we are working with the classic sort of stereotypes and tropes of the Wild West, is there going to be a First Nations reserve somewhere around there?
Let me see.
Is there gonna be just like all these settlers coming on in, or are we gonna actually have some of the native people in on this sort of thing?
Yeah, well, it might be its own topic because
what if it winds up being that there's not anyone there, but there are some like areas in like the neighboring counties and all that, and it turns out there's never been a native tribe there. Because, it's always been the land of murderers, and no one goes there. That's where the land of the guilty are. And so it's got like this history that even before the white man came and made the town of Guilty, it's always been the land of the guilty murderer.
It could be.
That's where you exile your murderers too.
The weird thing, about the Western genre is it's the tale of a lawless land, but sort of told from, the white people's perspective. And that, this land is... it has its own set of laws and stuff that other people sort of had before, and the white people move in, and they have guns, so they're powerful enough to flaunt, native power.
And you can call in the cavalry when things get really bad.
And they have sort of some tie to a U.S. government back in the East that
will send a whole bunch of people to settle things out.
So in that sense, it's only lawless in the fact that they're sort of strong-arming their way into the area.
You can get away with this sort of stuff because there's wide open spaces enough. A person can get killed and just left to rot, and no one will know for decades.
Well, I don't know about decades, but...
no, so every once in a while they still find out, they're digging up a place and they find more bones. They say, guess we found someone who didn't make it. We'll figure out why. Well, the gunshot at the back of the head probably indicates how he died. So it's still something that happens. It doesn't make the news. It's not really newsworthy, but it still happens from what I've been told.
I guess, sure.
So there's no native tribe in the area because this is the
well, that was the question: is there a native
presence
component?
This county?
I suppose if we're making, I wouldn't
want to exclude them because it's just like no, this is a story of the Wild West. We don't have any non-white people involved in here.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I would have native characters, yeah.
And what happens in the second season when the railroad finally does come by? What about all these outsiders building the railroad? Does it count as being killing a person if you do it through negligence with a dynamite?
I mean, like, legally, there is some liability, yeah, if you...
But no one's going to put you in jail because, like, oh, there was an accident, you know, working
Well, if
along
they
the
can't
way.
prove that, yeah...
But you were at fault, sort of thing, so it winds up being...
Well, I don't know, manslaughter or just negligence.
Well, I hate to say it, but there are people, like, the Chinese, folks that were immigrated over, like, if you killed them, like, you're not going to jail for it back then. It was just seemed they weren't people. It's like, oh, well, you killed one, but it wasn't like they were a real person. They were from China.
I mean, I guess
they were horrible people back then.
I'm already fictionalizing this whole thing. So yeah, do we take that sort of egoistic idea?
So then, what does it mean? Yeah, if you can wind up putting in this one person. He's like the Chinese railroad worker who has killed one of his his friends in an accident, but no one puts him in jail because apparently he doesn't matter enough, and his ethnicity doesn't matter enough to put people in jail for killing. He's a killer, but apparently it was so worthless a kill, no one would put him in jail for it.
I don't know if it was...
So then you get that, I mean, because you wouldn't see that for very many other people in the town. You killed a person, but they were so worthless it's not going to matter. Just keep on going.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Just one more person to add to the colorful roster of characters in the town of Guilty.
Yeah. Although, like, I mean, now that we're talking about Westerns, I would like to see a Western that was more from the perspective, or just, a Western-style movie featuring Native American characters as our heroes, or...
More towards the protagonist end?
Yeah.
And yet you don't want the investigator to be the First Nations guy, because then it winds up being like the lone wolf trope, and it winds up becoming kind of like a stereotype.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
You'd have to play that one really carefully to avoid making it look like any of the old rehashed stereotypes. Because remember, Johnny Depp, got a lot of negative press for his portrayal of Tonto in the Lone Ranger movie.
I feel like a lot of the dysfunction that comes about in these tales of Wild West towns, because we're not too far off sort of the trope of this town springs up in the wilderness built out of refugees and fugitives, people who might not be welcome. It's just we've added that additional step of they have to be murderers.
They're not quite immigrants so much as they are emigrants. They were forced out on who they were.
Right, yeah. And the native experience, I think, is a little bit more tied to their own communities. They don't build these sort of Wild West towns where it's just, a combination of just all this. It's more like, they're, I don't know, families or tribes of people who are sort of, I mean, yes, they've been displaced and they're a similar tale
but
of
they're still a family.
Moving. But I don't know. In fact, like, maybe what we need is maybe someone who's more familiar with the stories, because I feel like I don't know enough about it.
I won't lie. A lot of my Wild West history stuff comes from the Me TV. They call them rope operas.
Yeah.
They're like the afternoons, and it's like Bonanza and stuff like that, which is not given the best portrayal for anyone who's not eminently Caucasian.
Because I feel like native stories should be just as compelling and just as exciting and action-focused and driven. But yeah, we'd have a very different, attitude, very different way of approaching also exciting story. But yeah, you'd need people with that experience, and people who know how that went down to actually tell a little bit more.
To give justice to the story being told.
Although, like, at the same time, like, I was fine when we were talking about the sort of the white settler version of this. I was fine with just mythologizing whatever I needed to mythologize. So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so now we got to ship this out to the various networks and all that stuff. Do you think we could make this onto HBO? Do you think this is good enough for HBO? Guilty. HBO Season 3 begins next week.
I guess we have to compare it to whatever's already out there, because when you sell it to a TV network, you're basically saying, okay, this is a Western. Like, so do you already have any
this
Western
is a
going
Western
on?
period piece sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, from what I've been told, Sopranos got shipped. Like each, like all the major networks. Do you want to play? You don't want this Sopranos thing? Do you want this?
Yeah, this is a gangster story.
Yeah,
so.
and this is the thing is, they said no for two main reasons. One was, you can't have a bad guy. You can't have the bad guy be the protagonist, because then you would have all these negative feelings about the horrible things he's doing leak over to the commercials, and then people wouldn't be in the right mind frame when it comes time for commercials.
Yeah.
And so because they were under the perspective of the marketeers, they had to turn stuff like that down, because who's going to want to advertise during this time slot? And that's why it made itself over to HBO, is they didn't have to worry about is his horrible actions going to put people in a sour frame of mind, when commercials come up? Because no, there are no commercials. You don't have to worry about people thinking, God, hey, that was a horrible thing he did. I don't give two creds about McDonald's right now. Oh my God, I'm so disgusted. And then you're watching a McDonald's commercial and you're thinking disgusted. Next thing you know, McDonald's is disgusting. Because they didn't have to worry about the advertisers.
I see what you mean. Okay. Well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that'd be a good way to do it. I mean, I think HBO is a good model for doing TV. I don't know if they would pick up this show that we're talking about in particular, because, I'm not an expert on that, but maybe.
A man can dream, though.
Yeah.
How can people get a hold of us, Josh?
Oh, let's do that.
If you're from HBO or any of the other major networks, how could people get a hold of us, Josh?
Or if you're just a fan, we'd love to have your comments via email. thesimulationist@gmail.com is our email address. You can comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/thesimulationist, and other fans will be able to see it and comment back to you, so we can get a community going. That would be great.
But not the community of Guilty, New Mexico.
Right. You don't have to have killed anybody to sign up to our Facebook page.
Although if you have burned somebody severely with a particularly good burn, online, credit and props to you.
If I can somehow prove that, I suppose I don't know. I don't know
proof.
what I can give you.
You don't get a prize or anything, but there's a prestige. Like a good burn's a good burn.
Okay. Yeah. So we go to our Facebook page, like it, and stuff like that. YouTube.com/thesimulationist is where we also post these same audio files, but with a little picture on it, so it can fit on YouTube, and you can comment there too as well. We read those. And you can get this on iTunes, so if you're not already subscribed, you can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or your favorite podcatcher of choice. And if they let you write a review, which iTunes does, we would totally appreciate any kind of review you give us, as many stars as you think we deserve, or thumbs, or whatever the app may be. And also, in real life, if you happen to live in the real world and interact with other geeky types and enjoy,
if you are not exactly a movie producer or anything like that, but you know someone who's looking, in that part of the industry, and who's looking for a good idea for the next big thing.
Yeah, word of mouth. Or send them a link via email. But yeah, word of mouth is super good for us. It helps us a lot. And also, if you happen to have a couple of dollars rattling around, we are on Patreon. So that's another option. You can look up The Simulationist on Patreon and help us out in that way. Yeah.
More batteries, always more batteries.
Yeah, because my recording devices run on AA batteries. So.
Yeah, we got to find a way to plug them into the wall socket one of these days.
Yeah, well, I mean they have USB connections, but it's probably fine.
Well, it's weird because then I'd have to plug the USB into my netbook, plug my netbook into the wall, and we just have some sort of Frankenstein anaconda, line system going on there. But we could do it, I suppose, if we want to, need to. I
think if I have a USB to power adapter, so that might actually, I don't know if that would work. I could, I know I can, it will all fit together, but I don't know if that actually provides power.
One way to find out.
Yeah.
Science.
I'll have to, why am I talking this on the podcast? I don't know. Well, we're almost done, so. Is that all the things? I think that's all the facial media, social media.
So, final thoughts.
I'm on Twitter. At Josh_Trelaff, and that's TRESLAFFIN is my Twitter handle, so you can tweet at me on Twitter. Okay.
So final thoughts. I think yes, I've managed to figure out a little bit better like semblance of like how much counts as too many suspects.
Okay.
There is no such thing as too many suspects, provided you can give them proper face time and mode of explanation time. Bringing in a person in like Act 2 and just to show a thing, you know, like, oh hey, maybe what's this person doing in all of a sudden? Maybe it was them all along. But that's it. The more suspects you have, I do believe the more chances you'll wind up getting crazy theories coming together where it was like, it wasn't just one of them, it was two, it was three, it was all of them. Sort of thing. So it's like, it was really the nurse and the wife of the man, you know, having the affair with, you know, with the wife. She hypnotized the wife, you know, the lady into realizing that she's not really, you know, like paraplegic, and then she committed the murders, and no one would suspect her because she's wheelchair bound. And so the more suspects you get, the more outlandish the ideas are going to start coming in as you try and figure out what's going on with all these options. You start thinking more and more options.
Speaking of murder by like a lot of people, I was going to say
death of 1,000 cuts.
But there is this sort of there's lynchings and there's sort of mob violence in which, like, you know, 1,000 people could be responsible for the death of a few, and they're like, how do you try those 1,000 people, right? Or because you sort of have to choose ringleaders to say, oh well, that person was more responsible than other people. But also there's this sort of, you know, when we have the death penalty, we sort of think of it as all of society sort of agreeing to kill this, you know, a person, like, when we give them the death penalty. We
have agreed as a society that you are no longer valuable or even worthwhile to have around, and thus we shall terminate your existence.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, United States still does that. Other countries in the world still do that. I think Canada might have it on the books for, like, a military crime.
I don't even
still
think for military
not
crime.
for that anymore.
Basically,
okay,
just
treason.
throw you away and forget about you.
Okay, so we don't have capital punishment anymore. But the other thing, though, is
you have become so worthless to society, we're going to throw you away, and then you're never going to get free. But don't worry, we're humane. We won't kill you.
Here's what I'm curious.
Oh, unless you get old and want to die, in which case now, thanks to the euthanasia laws that are going to get passed, we can do that.
Oh, yeah, that's
weird.
That's another topic. which could
we can't force you to die, but if you want to die, we'll help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah. But here, I was wondering, though, like, what if... okay, here's a scenario. Hopefully this doesn't do another half-hour podcast, but the scenario is somebody manages to trick society, like frame someone, or for some reason, like, trick society into thinking that someone else is guilty, and that person gets the death penalty.
As has happened in the United States.
Yeah, basically it's something that happens. Isn't the person, whoever, like, pulled off this conspiracy or whatever, like, saying, just for the sake of saying that this is orchestrated by a person.
You kill a person, and then someone else gets blamed for it, and they get killed on the death penalty. Are you then, like, responsible for their death as well? Because you did not come forward.
Do you get charged for some kind of murder or something of that person?
I think you should. I don't think there's a nation that actually has that on place. It's more like the government accepts, whoop, that was our bad. We killed the wrong person.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, if they're genuinely tricked, I suppose there's no intent by anybody, except for, the person who does the tricking sort of is guilty of like, you know, the weapon of, the murder weapon is society. They use society to kill someone else. So, I don't know, it's just a weird thought.
But at what point does society, or the government manage to take the blame on that one?
I don't think, I don't think the government, I mean, sure, they take the blame for being fallible and not looking into it deep enough and failing, but in a sense, no, it is the fault of whoever sort of tried to trick them, because that's the person with the malice and the intent.
I'm actually going to split the blame 50-50.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, it's like, you let an innocent man die for your crimes. On the other hand, the government still's the one that killed them, not actually you. The government didn't have to kill anyone. It wasn't like they got forced in, like, he was attacking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, if this person didn't get shot, he would have killed all of society. So it's like, no, it wasn't that sort of situation. So I think the government has to accept some responsibility on that regard.
I suppose. And if the government is willing to, it has the death penalty on the books and is willing to take that much responsibility, it's probably not that much of a stretch to say, well, okay, yeah, we killed them, but sometimes we do that, and so we're gonna, I don't know.
But that's the argument against capital punishment, because even if a single innocent person gets the chair and gets killed when they weren't responsible for it, isn't that a greater injustice? Is that not the greatest injustice the government can dish out upon a person? Is killing an innocent person?
I wouldn't go that far, but I do.
That's what they're arguing.
I am technically against the death penalty, sort of in real life. I think the death for basically that reason. Well, and for other reasons, but one of my reasons is that, it is an injustice to kill an innocent person, and there's always some doubt. I
prefer working with the mathematics or things. Like if it's one person, killed, sort of thing. Don't give them like the death penalty just in case it's wrong. But in the case of stuff like Robert Pickton, where you've got dozens gone, it's like, you know what? Even if you didn't get to, you didn't kill all these people, we're pretty certain you killed at least one or two of them, and that's mathematical, like 100% guarantee. And now we kill you on that one.
Yeah, and I suppose like that's one objection to the death penalty. I think my real core objection to the death penalty is just that it doesn't actually bring back the dead people. Like
it is more of a vengeance system than justice.
Yeah, so there's no. I mean,
on the other hand, it does save money done right.
Well, as far as the science goes, it is technically cheaper to keep a person in prison for life than just because of all the complications that go along with the death penalty.
Yeah.
Because we have a more civil society
going on in there.
but those they do cost more in the end. So it is actually technically cheaper to keep them alive. That's just science.
Forever. Yeah. Well, that's economics.
I mean, I suppose if you figured out a fast way to circumvent all those, but you don't want to circumvent the checks and balances because that's another part of it.
Yeah, so, even if the person says they did it, they might be, saying such things under coercive circumstances.
Yeah. So there's basically, I think
might not
we've
be right
outlined,
in the head. They might not even be mentally stable enough to properly admit to innocence on that when they say they're guilty because, mental deficit reasons.
Yeah, that can happen. Yeah, it can and has happened. So that's about 3 different arguments against the death penalty. 3 that sort of, I guess you add them together and you have a pretty strong case. But I don't want to.
Most movies and shows, it never even winds up getting that far. It winds up being, it's like, it was you, that's right, it was me, and now I'm going to kill you too, blah, 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 I shot him in self-defense, and now the guilty person is dead.
Yeah, that happens, yeah.
Boy, does that save the justice system a lot of time and money.
Yeah, well, if you're a vigilante, okay, I guess, but it's... I don't know.
Not as good a vigilante as others. I mean, Batman's a vigilante and all that sort of stuff, but it's not like he's killing people because it's cheaper. It's like, I killed them because, like if they had gone to jail, it would have cost the government millions of dollars over the course of years. I had to kill them. Although, boy, wouldn't that be a nice little villain for Batman to fight? Someone who sneaks into prisons and kills the inmates.
Ooh, yeah.
Because they're costing so much money, and if I kill enough people, eventually the government will wind up not spending so much money on them, and they can spend it on things that really matter, like, I don't know, whatever their personal agenda wants to be. Okay. So we got a good Batman villain, for at least a one-shot villain thing going on in that one, and the town of Guilty, New Mexico.
Yeah, well, we covered a lot of ground, I guess. I don't know. Maybe.
All right. Well, you'll hear from us again in another 7 days.
I've been Josh 11.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
Finland.